You are listening to Stribling's New York on WOR AM Radio 710 on your digital dial. If you'd like further information about Stribling, I urge you to contact our producer, Tony Simone. That's TSIMONE at stribling.com. And speaking of Stribling, we have with us in the studio not only Tony Simone, but Geoff Martell. Welcome.
Thanks. How you doing?
I am well.
Good.
Tony has a huge stack of questions for you.
Huge.
Great.
Stack. The popular word nowadays. So
I'm not quoting Trump.
Tell us who.
Yeah.
This is a non-political show. Tell us a little about
They all say.
the market and contracts closed in the last few weeks and like what's going on.
Yeah, sure. So I think there's been a general consensus at least among the brokerage community. I haven't talked to a lot of other people in the data community yet, but that the market seems a little bit soft and a little bit slow. And I think we've definitely seen that over the past few months, certainly the first quarter of this year. And
We're talking all
talking all product types, all price ranges. I think certainly within the price ranges, you have much more softening in the 5 million and up, and especially the 10 million and up price range. But 1 to 3 million and 3 to 5 million have continued to be pretty strong. But overall, across the board, year over year, we have seen less contracts signed this month. So for May than we did in May 2015. But as we should expect, average prices and median prices did tick upwards by about 1 to 2% year over year. And price per square foot was up about 4% year over year. So while you have a little bit of softening in terms of the amount of contracts that are being signed, we certainly still see demand to live in New York as evidenced by the rising prices.
Is that just buyers taking their time more, or it's still a seller's market, right?
It's definitely still a seller's market. I think there are a number of different things that probably factor in to that number. And, over the past 6 months, there have been, while it's a non-political show, there have been so many political factors that certainly influence the real estate market, whether at home or abroad, that those factors, I think, are starting to finally trickle into the numbers.
Have there also been, sorry, Rob?
No, go ahead, Tony.
Has there also been policy implications? Has it been, I know 421A hasn't been renewed, which is the tax break that developers get, which slowed.
Yeah, that's right. I
construction.
think we are not seeing the implications for, I don't think policy implications are really beginning to hit the market yet. I think maybe you'll see a drop in new housing starts and construction starts, last month to the months moving forward because of 421A. But at this point, what was built is continuing to be built, and I don't think 421A in particular will start to be felt for at least a few more months.
Are there any developments that are not selling as well as everybody had expected?
Are there any that's an interesting question. I think across the board, I'll just speak across the board. I don't want to necessarily preference any developments, but the new development market certainly is softening much more than the resale market is. And there have been developments that, have seen sluggish sales as compared to what developers thought. Now, you have to remember that everything that's selling now, everything from 56 Leonard, which started sales in 2008, to 50 Riverside to Extel's 157, all of these started sales in 2008, 2009, 2010, and their expectations back then and their expectations in 2014 and 15, were certainly much higher than the realities that they're seeing right now. So what you're seeing is a lot of developers are cutting prices on full price units like 157, like 50 Riverside, and you were starting to see developers revise their expectations downwards, mostly because they have to, because ultimately, we're all beholden to someone, and they're beholden to their investors.
Wasn't it a $120 million sale just closed?
Yeah, well, $120 million sale just went into contract. And, it's true, there are these articles over the past, 2 or 3 weeks, which seem to relay the fact that, there's a problem when you see a surplus of $100 million plus properties, globally. But the truth of the matter is, there are only 14 or 15 sales a year in 100 million plus properties anyway. So the fact that we're seeing a rise in the number of properties, and maybe they're not selling as quickly. I don't think it's an indication of a bubble. I think it's just symptomatic of the sort of sluggish market that we've seen overall, and maybe people are holding on to their money a little bit longer. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, and I certainly don't think it's symptomatic of a widespread housing bubble.
Yes, Tony.
My turn. So
Yeah.
what's the market looking for? Say I have some clients, first-time buyers right now. Say, good credit, great income, good job.
Good credit, great income, good job.
you
The
know-
market is tight for first-time home buyers. I think for two reasons. One, there's a lot of competition in the lower price points, $1 to $3 million. Now, if you're a first-time buyer, looking for an Upper East Side townhouse, $20 to $35 million, there's plenty of properties on the market for you that have been sitting since 2013.
What if you're a buyer with a
but it-
budget of max $900,000, $800,000?
Tony has a lovely exclusive at 325 East 41st Street for $825,000.
It's an
Two
almost,
bedrooms, two
City.
it's an
baths.
almost unheard of price point for
Yes.
what, a 2-bedroom in Tudor City. I mean,
That's
it sounds
correct.
it sounds fabulous.
Great
And
building.
For, and
New
for a
lobby.
first-time home buyer, what would the down payment on that be, Tony?
I'm
good
bad
credit.
with math.
20%.
20% of
25%.
25%. Yeah,
So-
this co-op's 25. You're the data guy.
I-
This co-op requires 25% of 825. So what is
25% of 825. What? I mean, tens of thousands of dollars. It's a low down
Well, more than
payment,
that,
low
right.
barrier to entry, a great price point for people entering the market. But the problem is, and the problem has been for the past 5 years, that there's so little inventory below. Really below $900,000 in the entire Manhattan market, that for someone who's trying to get into the market,
Be a
especially-
$200,000 down payment.
yeah, $200,000. Then, it's hard to get in, and there's a lot of upper negotiability. So people are, overbidding on these properties that are lower priced, just because there's a lot of people that want them. So it's tough for a buyer, but there is a lot of product out there.
What if you're looking for a $3 million pet-a-terre?
If you're looking for a $3 million, depends on where you're going to live.
What about Upper East Side?
$3 million pied-à-terre. I mean,
There's a lot of
depends.
inventory or no?
There's inventory. It depends on whether you want to live in you want a condo or a co-op. Do you want, how many square feet do you want? Do you want private outdoor space? I mean, the more things you want, obviously, the less inventory there is.
Sure.
But in terms of an approximate number of units on the market, at the $3 million price range on the Upper East Side, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but you wouldn't be lost to see a bunch of apartments with a broker.
What about the Brooklyn market? How's that doing?
The Brooklyn market, generally in the past few years, we've seen the Brooklyn market, and certainly the trends in the Brooklyn market lead the trends in Manhattan. But at least from my analysis, the softening in Brooklyn has been much less relative to the softening that we've seen in Manhattan over the past 6 months. So the Brooklyn market continues to be a market where people are able to get in, at $1 to $2 million and get a lot of space, maybe even get a backyard and private outdoor space. And, when you can get private outdoor space in a 2 or 3 bedroom for $1.2 million, you better bet there are going to be 5 other people who are putting in offers immediately.
Little non sequitur. I always find the big challenge outer borough apartments, areas of maybe Bed-Stuy, or I was just in by the Navy Yard last night. I mean, the transportation deserts, right? If you don't own a car,
I think
it's a walk to
it's-
that train. Well,
you
now
know,
we have
out-
Uber and Lyft, I know, but
yeah, absolutely. I mean, outer
not everyone
borough.
can afford Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, transportation deserts, sometimes even food deserts. The livability of these areas, while it's affordable, certainly plays into, the factor, certainly factors into the pricing. I mean, if you want to live in a village or you live in West Chelsea, I mean, what you're really paying for is a 325 square foot apartment, but you're paying for the amenities, which is,
Hudson
the
River
opportunity
Park,
to live in
beautiful restaurants.
beautiful parks. You have the waterfront. But Brooklyn, while it still might be beautiful, you don't have, the density in terms of retail and in terms of restaurants that you do in Manhattan. So
Well, that's
you're gonna pay
changed in
less.
downtown Brooklyn, though, right? Brooklyn
Yeah,
Bridge
I mean,
Park is going to have a
Brooklyn
whole
Bridge
retail
Park,
corridor.
Dumbo, Williamsburg, these are all places that are simply extensions of downtown, and people have been talking about them as extensions of downtown for the past 10 years. So, it changed a long time ago, and ergo, or thus you're seeing, high-rise developments going up in Williamsburg and downtown Brooklyn because people can go out there at night. People can go out. I mean, people can go out in Bushwick if they want to, but you're seeing it as a very, very livable area that's 15 minutes outside of the city. So you're starting to pay more city-like prices as well.
How long a trip is it to Bushwick from Midtown?
I don't know. I've never been there.
You haven't been to Bushwick? Yeah, either have I, which is why I was asking.
Neither of you been to Bushwick?
No.
You guys got to get out of your neighborhoods.
I lived here for
Bushwick's
6 months.
amazing.
Why would I want to get out of my neighborhood?
There's great dance parties there and restaurants, and it's a good neighborhood. It's still affordable. A lot of artists live there, and
a lot of artists
more
used to live
affordable.
in Manhattan because what?
They
now
used to live
they've
in
all been
Greenwich
pushed-
Village back in
Exactly
the
right,
day.
and now they've all been pushed
well,
out.
that's
it's
the
just like San
stereotype.
Francisco.
There's still artists at Westbeth and some artist housing for my work in government. We
But those are
preserve lots of
designated
housing for
artists. Those are often designated
Right.
buildings, which
Manhattan
essentially act
Plaza
as
and
rent
Hell's
control.
Manhattan Plaza, Hell's Kitchen. You have to be
Yeah,
an artist or a
absolutely.
Broadway star. We have them. We need more of them.
We do need more of them, but the way
Where do you build them?
where do you build it? I mean,
Land's expensive.
land's expensive.
Nobody wants a high tower, right? So
No.
you gotta
I mean, here's what happens when you buy a land. There's a development in San Francisco called the Harrison, and the developer bought the land and, for an undisclosed amount of money. Certainly I know what it is. And, when the developer wanted to price the building, they wanted $21.50 a square foot blended for a 49-story building in San Francisco. And it was too aggressive. And, sales are sluggish. I mean, that's the same thing that happened in Manhattan. So where, land's expensive, you got to, sell units for expensive prices. And, maybe finally the buyers are starting to push back a little bit.
Well, this has been very informative, Geoff. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
And you make data and data sound interesting and compelling.
I sure
sounds
try.
sexy, right? Data can be sexy for my tech
Definitely
friends.
sexy.
All right, well, we'll see you again soon on the show.
We got
Will
Rob
indeed.
Verklempt.